Well, hello, model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Raul. In this week's build I'm featuring here, this is a 65 Thunderbird convertible. Now in 65, the Thunderbird really didn't change a whole lot from the 64. We're still riding high on the success of the 64, where that's the most selling Thunderbirds ever, was 94,000 64 Thunderbirds. Previous record was the 1960 Thunderbird with just barely 90,000 units for 1960. But the 61 through 63s had a downturn in production, but 64, there was 94,000 of them made. So for 65, they really didn't change much. Some options did disappear, and there was a little bit of revisions in the body. But all in all, there was 75,000 65 Thunderbirds produced, but only 6,800 of those were convertibles. And they were all two doors, of course. They had the two-door hardtop and the two-door Landau, which is still a hardtop, but it had the Landau roof, which basically had the vinyl top and then the Landau bar instead of the Thunderbird emblem. But that was really the difference between those two models, other than some interior options and whatnot. But the convertible only came in one setup. Now, they didn't offer the Sports Roadster for 65, even though technically it was available for 64 and only 50 units got made, and it was pretty much canceled, but it became, you can order the parts from the parts department, get the wire wheels, get the fiberglass tonneau cover that covered the back seat, and you can hide the back seat that way and have a Sports Roadster for 65. But technically, none were made. Mechanically, they were all 390 engines, 300 horsepower, 390 engines. Really no options there. Cruise-o-matic automatic transmissions. There were no manual transmissions in Thunderbirds. Not for quite a while anyway. They kind of died off. But these were luxury cruisers. Fender skirts were still there. Interior was pretty much the same, other than a little less chrome in the 65 versus the 64. So they toned it down a little bit. So that's why this dash is a lot more black in it than the 64. But most of it's still there. The big console that separates everything, and even the tilt-away steering was still available in it. But when it came to the rest of the car, they did some revisions to the body and cleaned some things up here. Most noticeable, and which was something the model kit had flawed, 64 had the Thunderbird script and letters all the way across the hood. 65, they went back to having the Thunderbird emblem on the front. 64 was the only year that had the letters across the hood like that. And then the grille was just a little bit revised, but not much there. But the rest of it pretty much stayed the same hood scoop, snorkeled up quite a bit. A lot of the sheet metal is kind of interchangeable, but the trim is moved around. Now they took the Thunderbird script off the fender, they moved it to the back and revised it. But they added this scallop right there, which I always thought was pretty cool. I kind of really like the 65s because of the trim options and changes done to it. And then the script in the back. And then they really revised the taillights for the 65 model year. 64 taillights, they had the Thunderbird emblems on both sides, on top of the actual lens, and Thunderbird script in the middle. So it was a little redundant where it had Thunderbird all over the taillights, two emblems and the script. They cleaned it up for 65, but something you may or may not know, 65 was the first year of the actual working sequential taillights, where they blinked in sequence. It was developed for the 64 Thunderbirds. It was ironed out and ready for production, but it was not approved by the federal government. So the 64s did not get it. Now, many people did actually add it to the 64s, but the 65s were the first ones to actually get it from the production standpoint. Another thing on convertibles, there's no lock cylinder on the trunk. Only the coupes had that. So that's a thing that stands out when it comes to that. And then also, there's no convertible boot. Many of you notice that or know that if you know Thunderbirds, but I've seen a few builds every now and then where somebody puts one on and they're thinking it was missing or whatnot, but it shouldn't be there. But on convertibles, this is actually body color, this piece right here. But in the coupes and whatnot, that can be interior color. But that's just another thing that differentiates the convertibles. Now, the convertible, the trunk actually comes up the other direction and the top folds into it. And then this panel flips out and then it closes down. So pretty well hidden. and tucked away, and it's kind of a neat setup. I kind of love them for that because they're convertibles without really looking like convertibles. And then this one, I do have the up top, and there it is with the top on it, and really cool. And these are kind of fun to find that way. But let's take this outside, and then I'll share more about the build itself and everything, and we'll continue on. All right, here we are outside in the sun, checking out this 65 Thunderbird on BG's rotisserie here. Thank you again, BG, for the contribution to the channel. But anyway, here's that 65 Thunderbird just popping out in the sun with that bright yellow paint and the bare metal foil and everything. Just really looking good with the 1965 molded into the tail panel and also the front bumper, as this is the annual kit, and just looks great. And some of the work I've done to it and everything, but we are out in the sun, so we really should take this top off. Let's just set that aside and show it how it should be when it's out in the sun. Top down with that black interior that might scorch you, but looking great with the chrome and the foil work on this. It just really pops. And you know, I love these old Thunderbird annual kits and a lot of the cruisers that they built back then, but I really enjoyed this one, and it was a fun one to kind of find, especially getting the up tops, as this 65 annual is the only one that really had an up top. So when those popped up on eBay, I tend to grab them. But anyway, we'll head back inside with this one and continue on. All right, I really love this yellow, and it really pops in the sun. It's a little more yellow than the real car's yellow would be, but and then this is a 1965 annual AMT kit, and it's the only one that actually came with an up top. So for a while on eBay, if this top popped up separately, I would buy it and I add them to the other ones. So I've got a couple extras. That's why my up top that's in my 59 and 60s and 58s. They all are pretty much these, and you know, anytime a 65 top popped up on eBay, I was snagging it. So the interior, it's all pretty much how AMT produced it. It's pretty cool from the promos. Now, I mentioned the trunk lock cylinder. The convertible kits had that as well on the model kit, but they didn't belong there from the car itself. So I sanded it off, but it was there. Another thing, for some reason, I think the convertible kits came out first is what I understand. But all the model kits had the 64 hood that had Thunderbird across the thing. The 65 coupe kits, because AMT did make both, had the correct 65 hood. But the convertibles had the 64 hood. Now this is technically that same hood from the 64. I just sanded the Thunderbird lettering off of it and just used the same hood. And then this is actually a foil casted emblem stuck on the front. So, you know, I pulled that off of another one. I think I bought a resin hood, but it was warped. And I ended up just doing that, foil casting the emblem and sanding the things off and just keeping it that way. So I dolled up the motors, because this thing does have a motor. Nothing special about the details in it, but it's got the tank, the distributor, the breather, the battery. It's all pretty much there, and it's all pretty nice and fairly accurate. The underside's there too. Now 65 motors were black from Ford, so they kind of did some weird stuff where the valve covers were certain colors to help identify which motor it was, but all the blocks were black. You know, same thing with Mustangs and everything. The blue engine blocks didn't appear until 66. So it's got the rear end in it, the 2 screws. So when you hear, you know, it's a screw chassis, that's what they're talking about. So a simple chassis with simple details there with the Cruise-O-Matic automatic transmission right there and the pipes, but pretty simple, easy to build. These are kind of fun to restore. I like it that way. The fender skirts are molded in. The 66 kit, the fender skirts are actually separate parts and you glue them in, but the previous ones, they're all molded to the body. And a lot of bare metal foiling here, but this one was a pretty decent kit. I think I got some pictures of what I started with, so I'll throw them on at the end of the video so you can watch for them in a little bit of a slideshow. And then, I had all the chrome redone from Chrome Tech Bob back then. This is kind of an older build. I'm trying to remember exactly when I built it. It's probably 10 or 15 years old. But, she's a fun one. And I would buy the 66 for parts if I needed to. It was a great parts kit, and those things were everywhere for the longest time. Why they didn't have this up top, I don't know. It's kind of interesting that it didn't have those in the 66 kits, but would love to the up top would come back or not. But anyway, another one's kind of fun to do and fun to foil. It's kind of fun to look at that emblem and see how I foiled that and trimmed it, got it on there. And then same thing right there on that, just the foil work. Sometimes I look at that and think, I can't believe I did that back then. So it's kind of, to me, it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But anyway, there's a real good close-up look at that bird emblem. And then the 65 dated bumpers and stuff, which, the grills are a little bit different. The rear bumper is specific. So just kind of fun to share this with you and look at it and everything. So, it's been a little bit of a while since I shared one of my restored Thunderbirds. So I share this one with you guys, and we'll see what you think about it in the comments and everything below. And you guys, thank you for tuning in and subscribing. Make sure you check out our sponsors in the video description below and hit that like and share. I really do appreciate it, you guys. And you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.